There we go.
Good evening.
So hopefully everyone will be able to hear us.
I think so. Is there anybody? It'd be great
there
if
we
there's
go.
anybody
We've got
out
the eye of 0. So we shall see
Good.
in just a second. Yep. All good on mine. So we should hopefully be ready. But we have come in a bit early because I'm a warrior, aren't I, Tracy? I was worried that Facebook would say no.
We need to do a calming session with you. You need to take some of your own advice, I think. There.
Do they do a licky mat that I could have like chocolate spread on? That's the question.
Did you not see?
Don't give that to dogs. Definitely don't give that to.
Did you not see my April Fool's reel that I did? Oh, it's worth looking at. Got some interesting comments. Got some new followers as a result of it. It was me licking my licky mat.
Amazing. I think I might have to treat myself to a new one rather than sharing Rico.
Yes, this was a new one. I'll hasten to add.
I don't know if chocolate spread and trout mousse would be very nice with one another. All right, so whilst we get started, can I please just comment on your beautiful bandana? Well, before we officially welcome everybody.
Yeah, and it is a licky mat bandana.
Incredible. And I did not know such a thing existed.
Well, it was either that or it was to wear my I love licking my licky mat t-shirt. But again, I've had some strange looks when I've been wearing this. I love it, but
do you wear it out and about? Have you worn that to Sainsbury's?
No. Be on brand. No,
exactly.
And I love your dress.
Thank you. The Cath Kidson's finest. Any animal print, really. But I thought we'd go dogs today because it's primarily dogs we'll talk about.
Perfect.
Yeah, I thought I'd make the effort to not be covered in mud, which after the last few days of dog training outside in the delightful northwest weather, it's been unavoidable.
I know. Well, we came back last night with Harvey, and I thought, I don't know what's worse actually. Is it the muddy paws because we've got muddy paws weather again, or is it the sort of 10 to 15 minutes of getting all the sticky balls out of his ears because there's a spaniel. I mean, his ears almost get stiff when he comes back from a walk because he's got so many. But thankfully, we did brushing of ears right from the start. So he's really used to it. I think he actually quite likes it. So
that is fortunate. That is very fortunate.
Yeah. No, so it's my top tip. Getting used to having their ears brushed.
Handling training is a big one, definitely. We may have to do another session about handling training later on. I've just seen Dawn's popped us a little comment to say hi. So hi, Dawn. If you are watching and you want to pop comments in, they should pop up and I will come to them as we go through. So if you've got any questions, do feel free to pop them in there. But just so we can kick off, I feel like everyone probably does know who you are. But introduce yourself for me, please.
Oh, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to come along. So my name is Mrs. P. So it's Tracy, but everyone knows me as Mrs. P from No Fuss Fill. And if you haven't come across us, No Fuss Fill is all about products that have been designed and carefully selected to make life easier and more fun for dogs and their people. So no, excited for this evening. Thanks, Rachel.
Yeah, well, I'm really glad to have you because I obviously use a lot of enrichment items, hence I came across you. But I feel like you know more about them than me because every time I go on your website, there's more. And I have a little bit of an addiction. So I'm under strict orders not to buy anything else. So I'll rein myself in. But for those of you who don't know me, if any of you've come over from Mrs. P's page, my name's Rachel. I'm a clinical animal behaviorist and I run Nose to Trail. And it's called that rather than nose to tail because I use pet trailing and man trailing and general scent work techniques to help dogs to overcome behavioral problems. And one of those behavioral problems that at this time of year and over the next couple of months, I get a lot of questions about and a lot of last minute inquiries about is the problems dogs have with fireworks. And to be honest, this technique that we're going to talk about tonight and the enrichment items we're going to discuss, they can be used with other sound issues. It doesn't have to just be fireworks. It could be gunshots. It could be thunderstorms. It could be all sorts of things. But the one that is prevalent at the minute is fireworks, isn't it? You know, it's a huge thing. And actually, I know some people are probably thinking, oh, it's only the beginning of September. Why are they talking about this now? But the behaviorists who came up with some of the resources we're going to look at later today, they did some research on this. And in the group of dogs they used in their study who went through this sounds scary training program, 90% of the dogs made a significant improvement in how they were coping with sounds. But that was over an 8-week period.
Yeah.
Now, maths isn't my strong point, but I think we are already less than 8 weeks away until when it is actually bonfire night.
It's actually 53 days.
See, you are on it. You know all these things.
No.
This is why I needed you with me. But as Faye has just commented in the chat box there, they're all the time now, aren't they? They are pretty much unavoidable. Over the last few years, I don't know, I live really rurally and we're quite lucky, but I do think that it has started to get more prevalent. Like people are having them weddings, parties, all sorts of different things. And, you know, we could have a whole discussion, couldn't we, about whether that's right or wrong and the problems that people can have with fireworks. But we know that it is a peak around kind of bonfire right through Christmas, New Year, isn't there? Just kind
I think to be honest, it's this whole season. As soon as we get the dark nights, it's an opportunity to let off fireworks. So yeah. And as Faye said, they had some on Sunday evening, no idea why. So yeah.
So I mean, personally, I just don't get the appeal. I don't want to be stood outside in the cold, in the miserable. I'd rather be in front of the fire with a glass of wine, I think would be my ideal. But they are happening all the time. And if you've got a dog who finds it difficult, or if you've got a puppy who hasn't encountered them yet, it is time to start trying to make a difference. There is no point in waiting until, you know, the week of, and you see that poster or that Facebook advert saying the local place is having a fireworks display. And then you think, oh, crikey, I need to do something about it, because it's too late then. It really is too late then. We will talk about some of the stuff today that you can do to kind of make things a bit easier for your dogs, if that is the case. And, you know, you get them out of the blue on Sunday evening and you haven't had time to go through a full program to help them. But really, we need to be doing the work early on. We really, really do. So the sooner you can start, the better. So if we go through things tonight and you are able to place your order on Tracy's website this evening and then get your order, you know, hopefully post allowing in the next couple of days, and you can start this training straight away, then please do. Don't put it off. I think hopefully people have seen the video that I did on TikTok and Instagram. Like, I have been doing this with Maisie, like practice what you preach. I've been doing this with my dog for the last couple of weeks. We spend a couple of minutes doing it here and there. And it is making a difference, because actually, I think we've talked about my dog before, haven't we? But, you know, she's a little old Jack Russell cross pug, and she is more sound sensitive now that her arthritis is bad and her hip dysplasia is bad, and she's on pain relief for it. And actually, now she's on medication, she's a lot better. But when she had that flare up and her arthritis got really bad a couple of years ago, that was the worst I've ever seen it. And it is horrible. It really is. So if anybody's watching this and you've seen your dog really struggle, if you've had fireworks at the weekend or last year and your dog has been shaking, if they've been salivating, if they've been trying to escape the house, if they've been hiding behind the sofa, you know, if they're really visibly distressed, then yes, you can try the stuff we're going to mention, but it is more likely that actually what you need to do is you need to go to your vet and have a chat, because there are things your vets can do to help in terms of kind of prescribing medication, but also more importantly, they can link you up with a behaviorist like myself. So hopefully there's a little banner across the bottom to let you know where to find one. But if your dog has an established firework fear, you know, a proper phobia, they really aren't coping, and it is taking them, you know, they're not recovering as soon as the fireworks finished. You know, it might be hours later or even days later that they are still stressed and they are still having a problem. Then please go and speak to your vet and ask to be referred to a clinical animal behaviorist. And the best place where you can kind of find those are the APBC, so the Association of Pet Behavior Counsellors, or on the ABTC, the Animal Behavior Training Council website, because you want to find someone potentially who's local to you to help you practically do the training. Okay, we can do it remotely, but there is, you know, a little bit of difficulty in terms of using sounds if we're doing it remotely, because you might have your computer volume up so you can hear me talking to you. And then if the firework noises start playing, it's potentially too loud for your dog. And we've got to be able to rule out underlying health conditions. So I mentioned that my own dog has an underlying health condition, and that's why you need to be referred by your vet to a clinical animal behaviorist, because they can rule out those health issues. And if there are any health issues, then it's the vet who has to prescribe medication. Yeah, I see a lot of stuff on social media at the minute about kind of people's differing opinions about behavior meds and medications in dogs in general. But in the United Kingdom, if you're watching this from outside, your rules might be slightly different. But in the United Kingdom, it has to be a vet who prescribes medication. Okay. There are different things, and we'll talk about a couple of those. And maybe this is a good place for us to start, really, on kind of what prep people can do before we even start looking at doing some training and using our enrichment items, because there are other things you can do. And sometimes I think people are a little confused about the difference between like pheromone based products, nutraceutical based products, and actual medication. Okay, so the first thing to make it really clear is that actual medication is coming from a vet. Okay, there'll be what we call a prescription only medicine. So if it's an anti-anxiety drug, for example, that has to come from your vet. Okay, your behaviorist might have a chat to your vet about them, but your behaviorist can't prescribe. Okay, it has to be a vet. So if you see any of those social media posts at the minute that are saying like the behaviorist put my dog on this, the behaviorist did no such thing. Okay, they'd be breaking the law. The behaviorist cannot prescribe medication. What they might suggest are these other products. So I don't know if Mr. P, whether you've heard of things like Adaptil or UCalm or any of those kind of products.
Yeah, no, exactly. And they're things that, Harvey got attacked at the beginning of the year, and that has certainly changed his behavior. And interestingly, just when you're talking earlier about dogs sort of changing over a period of time, last year, Firework's absolutely fine. I actually had the cutest picture that I was trying to find tonight of him with Mr. P, paws up. Well, Mr. P had his hands on the windowsill, but Harvey had his paws up and started watching the fireworks. And that was last year, and we were doing rewarding and calming sort of, things and rewarding him for just calmness. And he seemed to be enjoying it. A few weeks ago, there was a festival nearby and they let fireworks off and he was terrible. So I think, so we've started to look at, some of these other things. So I'm going to be really interested to hear what you say about these sort of Adaptil and UCalm and things like that. But
yeah, well, let's start with Adaptil. So Adaptil looks like kind of like your air diffusers, air fresheners that you plug into the wall. And what it is it's a synthetic pheromone based product. So Adaptil's like the brand name, and there are other diffusers that you can plug in, but to have a look at them, before you buy them, because they are different. Some of them are more like homeopathic, so they're like lavender smelling, like nice, calm, relaxing things that we might use in like aromatherapy based style stuff. But the actual product Adaptil is a synthetic pheromone, and pheromones are kind of chemicals that we secrete, dogs secrete. But the one that they've kind of packaged and made in this synthetic version for Adaptil is one that a lactating bitch, so a female dog who's had some babies, would be producing. And it's meant to be like a calming message. And that's why it can help dogs with fireworks, because it's like a calming thing. So quite often when fireworks go off, if dogs are showing panicky signs, actually our behavior as humans is to then worry about the dog. So then we get up and we're panicky, and that all kind of like, it spirals, doesn't it? The dog's panicking, then we're being flappy and we're not calm. And so everything goes up and up and up. Whereas if we've got something like the Adaptil product plugged into the wall, and you plug it in advance, potentially 2 weeks in advance, and you leave it plugged in. This isn't the kind of product that you're like, oh, it's gone dark, on, off at the switch.
Yeah,
you just leave it plugged in.
Yeah,
leave it plugged in, and, follow the guidance on the product itself. They've got great resources on their websites, but depending on like the area and the house size and your floor space, depends how many diffusers you might need to plug in. Because sometimes people will say to me, oh, it doesn't work, it doesn't make a difference. And, potentially the majority of evidence that we have is anecdotal rather than like scientific journals on it, for example. But a lot of my clients have found it to be beneficial when it is used appropriately. Yeah. So you want it in a place where it has free kind of, it can spread out and diffuse around the room. You don't want it like hidden away with like something over the top of it and it all blocked, because then the dog's not going to benefit. And one of the things that the difficulties for people is that like, I can't smell it. Like, I don't know anyone who can smell it. Dogs can. We know their sense of smell is incredible to ours. So I think it's quite hard for some people because you don't know if it's making a difference or not. Yeah. So I think, if you've not used it before, it's certainly worthwhile, like get it plugged in, get it ready. And think about that position of where you're going to plug it in, because one of the other things that's really worth us doing is setting up like a den and a safe area for our dogs. And again, you're not doing that on the night the fireworks start. We're setting that up ready. Okay, so apologies to anyone who's really house proud and doesn't want things cluttering up the living room, but it is worth setting up that safe area for your dog now so that they learn it's a safe space. Because you bringing, I don't know, a foldy up cage or a crate out of somewhere, digging around in the loft, pulling it down and setting it up, that's not a calming activity. It needs to be up and it needs to be ready. And I'll come back to that in a minute and talk more about it. But so you've got the Adaptil product, and there's the diffuser, or there's a collar that they wear. But in terms of the collar, the thing for me is the collar is designed more so for dogs who have issues outside of the house. But actually, one of my biggest bits of guidance for people when it comes to firework time is don't be taking them out at that time. Like if you've got a dog who's worried or you're not sure if they're going to be worried, walk them earlier, walk them while it's still light if you can. And if you can't, if you finish work late and you get back, then really make sure they're secure. Have them on their harness, have their collar on, make sure your details on your tag are up to date, because actually that is one of the biggest times that dogs run away. Because if a firework gets let off and it scares the dog, then they may bolt. So if you've got them off lead on a walk and they get spooked by, somebody throwing a firework in the park, for example, which I know has happened, unfortunately, to dogs that I've come across in the past, if they spook and they bolt, you could lose them. And it's dark and, it's scary. There's nothing worse than losing your dog and going through that. So if you can, walk them earlier. And if you really have to take them out for a last wee and things, then do. But if you can avoid it, then avoid it. No dog is going to really struggle if they miss one walk. So like on bonfire night, if you can't get home early to be with them, just don't take them out that night. Really isn't the end of the world. But the collars are designed more for that kind of setup, whereas the diffuser, obviously, they're going to be in the house, aren't they? Most dogs are going to be in the house for firework time, and that's going to be best for them. And that's going to be more beneficial. Now, there are other things you can use alongside. And actually, one of the products is interesting because I think you could get it for free recently if you signed up as part of their trial to try and get some actual research to show that it is beneficial for fireworks time. And that's the skull cap and valerian root, little kind of tablets or drops. I think when we met up at Crufts, we saw them, didn't we?
We did, yeah. And I got the valerian then, and that was just as a support whilst we got through this post-attack. So yeah, good.
And that's where the difference is between like a medicine and what we class as like a nutraceutical. A nutraceutical is more like a supplement. It's something that is naturally occurring. So these are, quite a lot of them are flower-based, aren't they? They smell quite nice. Yeah. I always think those tablets, but they are the building blocks for making the happy and the calming chemicals in the brain. So they are not like a sedative. What we are not suggesting anybody does is like just knocks their dog out and sedates their dog. Absolutely not. Okay. And I know if there's any kind of people who had dogs, 20, 30 years ago, that's what the medicines did. Okay, the actual prescription medicines, like that's where people's worry, I think, sometimes with behavior meds for fireworks comes in, because that's what they used to do. They used to like freeze the dog, but they never dealt with the internal emotion. So the dogs were like not doing anything bad in terms of like a human behavior problem. We weren't unhappy with the dog's behavior, but the dog wasn't any better inside. They were almost
still like experiencing what they were experiencing.
Yeah, and that's not the type of medicines that we use, and that is certainly not what like the nutraceuticals are for. They are just there as a calming supplement to make sure your dog has everything they can have to be in the best possible place to make those happy chemicals, to be as calm and relaxed as possible. But they are not drugs. They are, they're not there to kind of medicate the dog and make them just this sleepy thing. So, those are things to consider, the skull cap and valerian root or the U-Calm and those kind of products. If you've got a dog who you think might be a little bit worried, then they're things to consider using.
Yeah,
they really are. So we've got that kind of side of things covered. And then we need to look at making sure we've got a safe place for our dogs. So a den is really important. And it doesn't have to be a physical crate if you don't want it to be. It can just be an area that maybe previously they've gone to in the house when they're scared. So like my little Maisie, she's tiny, isn't she? She weighs 5 and a bit kilograms, nearly 6 kilograms. She's a dinky little dog. And her place to go when she's scared is that gap between the sofa and the wall.
Yeah.
Where she wants to go. So if she wants to go there, then that's the place where I could maybe drape some blankets over the top of the sofa so it's more covered over for her. Yeah. I can, shove some blankets in there, because a lot of dogs will like to dig and make a nest. Some of them want to put their head underneath to almost like muffle out the sound of the fireworks. So, if you don't have that kind of setup, or you've got a bigger dog, because I'm thinking about my house and I'm thinking downstairs, like a Labrador wouldn't fit in that little gap. But, you could use a crate. You could, even if it's one of the like poppy up fabric ones, it doesn't need to be crash tested. They're in the house.
Do you know what, Rachel? Expensive. It's like even a cardboard box, or a cardboard box that you've flattened.
Yeah.
So Harvey loves to sleep under my desk in the office, and he's got a bed under there. But sometimes we've had some work in the house nearby, and he's been disturbed by that and has been sort of looking up, and it's like, it's okay, everything's fine. But I just put a flattened box along the side, and it created just like a very small barrier. He could still get out, he could still see me. But it's just, as you say, it's that feeling of enclosure, and they just feel safe. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's individual difference, isn't it? Like some dogs are going to be more scared if you like pick them up and you try and like put them into a small space. But other dogs want that like enclosed area. They want to move to. I see more and more dogs who their place to retreat to is like the quietest place in the house, away from windows and things. And so it quite often, particularly in new built houses, it's like the ensuite toilet, because it's the only part of the house that doesn't have a window.
Right.
They're quite often attached to like the bedroom, and they're on like an interior wall if it's a semi-detached. And so it's the center of the house, and it's the most quiet place. So, you know, closing curtains, turning the TV and the radio and all of those things on to have background noise, muffle the sound, block the flashing lights out. All of those things are things that you can do in advance. Okay. Yeah, you might miss seeing the fireworks, but for me, I just always think like the dog comes first for me. And if you're in a house where there's kids, maybe like you can take it in turns. Somebody takes the kids out to a fireworks show, somebody stays in with the dogs, you know, because actually for our dogs, that person that is their companion, the person they've got that bond with, that's who they're going to get that company from and seek reassurance from if they are worried by fireworks. So, you know, as lovely as a dog walker or a dog sitter might be, if they don't already know them and have that bond with them, might actually not make much of a difference to the dog. So if you can be at home with them, then I would. So there's all of these things we can do in advance, and I would, you know, start using your enrichment items on a daily basis, you know, in those dens, as like making sure that's a place that dogs want to go to. I don't know whether you've got any kind of thoughts on which ones might be good for giving in like a den situation.
Well, it's interesting because I think, you know, when we started off the conversation, we're talking about, you know, 53 days to go, or, you know, how many weeks we've got until potentially, you know, the big day of Firework Day. But as a few people have commented already tonight, you know, it's all the time. So my top tip on this really is part of your prep is understand what it is that your dog likes, because it's one thing for us, we could sit here and I could say to you, well, licky mats are great. But if you've tried your dog with a licky mat and they're not really into that, then that's not right for them. So in the same way that I hear sort of behavioralists and trainers say, you know, train and or work with the dog in front of you, I think it's exactly the same with choosing the toy. So we can look at some of them tonight, and we can look at some of the different sort of textures and what you might like to put on them. But as I say, it's not just about a lick mat. So, I mean, if you're looking at just, as we know, you know, licky mat, and we've got some great offers coming tonight. See, anyone who's joined now, you can see my licky mat bandana. But yeah.
Oh, so look here. There we go. Look, if you want to have a matching one to Trace, there you go.
Yeah, well, it's really for your dog to wear, but there you go.
No, I think we should start a new trend. I want to see everybody wearing those.
There we go. I need to send you one. So I think it starts off, it depends what your dog likes to have. So, I mean, if you come back to, we were joking at the start and saying, well, what would we like to have on a licky mat? You know, it's no point trying to distract your dog with something that they're not keen on. And it's like, you know, for me, it would probably be white chocolate, or I could probably have some white wine on there or some red wine or something. But you've got to work out what it is you want to put on the top and what your dog's favourite topping is and what they're going to be engaged with. When you know what you're going to put on the top, then you can decide on what the configuration is for the lick mat. So if anybody's got any questions, please pop them in about what you feed your dog or what your dog's favourite topping is. I can give you some advice on which configuration mat would be better. So if we take something like this, which is the Soother, and this is the Tough range in the licky mat, that's really for things like your sort of gravies, your mousse. We've got things like the Fish for Dogs mousse that you could.
I was going to say that's my Maisie's favourite.
Yeah, Harvey does too.
I'm not a fan of you for this because I do not like fish, and I really think it stinks. But my two absolutely love it.
And then I think the thing people always think about for lick mats is peanut butter. But again, if your dog's not into peanut butter, you're not going to start whipping something like this out to try and distract them and keep them calm. You want them to be really focused on what's on this mat or what's in the toy. Do you want me to go through some top tips for different things for
Yeah, go for it
on
now.
this.
Because
Yeah,
actually, like, I think it's really helpful. There's a bit of a difference. So if you're coming to this and you're maybe watching it on the replay, and if you are, by all means, put like a hashtag replay. And if you've got any comments, because myself and Tracy will pick them up over the coming weeks. But with the kind of licky mats and any enrichment items, there's two ways of using them when it comes to fireworks. One is as a distraction technique. So like if you are watching this in the replay and you're going, you know, like there's fireworks due because there's a wedding and it's going to be tomorrow, you haven't got time to work through a desensitization plan and a counter conditioning schedule for them. It's using it as a distraction, and there's no problems with that whatsoever.
yeah,
But then the other side of it is using it for counter conditioning and training our dogs, which I'll go through in a little bit more detail. But getting the dogs to realize that fireworks means something good is coming. And that's the link.
yeah,
So like the sound of the fireworks means I'm getting this really exciting licky mat
yeah.
with my Fish for Dogs mousse on, or whatever it is. So there's two ways of using them. So yeah, you know, you go crack on, tell me more, because what I notice is that sometimes people will say to me, oh, my dog didn't like the enrichment item, and they have
Yeah,
used, for example, peanut butter, doggy peanut butter, making sure it doesn't have xylitol in, and it's like it's too hard for the dog, like
yeah,
it's sticking to the roof of their mouth, so like the dog's licking at it, but then they're like, and it's
exactly.
not actually working as a reward because they're not enjoying it.
Yeah, so exactly. So going back to the two things that you're saying, so if this is this sort of counter conditioning and saying, well, look, there's a big scary noise outside, and when I hear that scary noise, I actually get something exciting, then you want it to be rewarding. You don't want to make it too difficult and too challenging, and you want your favorite thing on the top or inside that toy. If it's something that's to distract, it's exactly the same. You want it to be challenging enough to distract, but not too challenging that they become frustrated and then they become occupied by the noise again. So as you say, you know, it is finding the right topping that your dog likes. If peanut butter is too sticky, and a lot of dogs, I think, do find it a bit, like, you know, I find it's a bit, when I have it, you can actually slacken peanut butter off in a little bit of boiling water and just sort of whisk it up. And then once you've slackened it off, you can then pop it onto something like this, the sort of soother mat like this. And it works
We
quite.
just had a comment about someone saying they've used that. I'm just going to bring it up. So there we go. Look, we used the soother tonight.
It's Faye. I know the lovely Faye and her lovely dog. So yes. Yeah, he's a gorgeous boy. So I'm pleased. Did you enjoy it, Faye? You need to let us know what in the comments. But yes, you could pop it onto something like the soother. The other thing is the sort of pastes. These are great, but again, concentrated. So you can slacken that off in a little bit of water. You can mix it in with some yogurt. We talked about your favourites, or Maisie's favourites, the Fish for Dogs mousse. There's so many things. You know, we've also got things like the Yummy Raid, which is a meal topper, but there's nothing to stop you actually popping that onto a mat. And if your dog is kibble fed, then you can use something like this, or a slackened off peanut butter water to soften down their kibble and mash their kibble in, if the kibble is exciting enough for them for this situation. So I think, you know, for me, you're talking about sort of getting everybody or getting dogs prepped and doing the training now. There is another side to this where I come in, and that is your prep period now, which is quite short because you want to start using this as your training, is to say, what are the top things that they like? What's going to motivate them? What are they going to feel distracted by? And which is the right toy? Is it a lick mat? Is it something, you know, maybe like a wobble bowl? Maybe they prefer the wobble bowl turned inside out, and that's a different experience for them. And you can put that in their den and it's not going to wobble around. You know, maybe it's stuffing something into a toy like this, which isn't too challenging, but it's interesting. So we can come up with some more toys again, Rachel. But yeah, I think, as I say, it's about that prep now.
It is. And actually, there's a couple of comments here, which we'll come to, I think, before we talk through the training in a bit more detail. But so Kirsty's put here that she's using wet food because her dog has allergies. And I have a similar thing. It's not an allergy with my boy. He's got pancreatitis. So like those amazing looking like liver paste stuff is way too high fat. And, you know, and peanut butter would be for Rico as well. So there are sometimes options that work for your allergies or dogs who have low fat requirements. One of my clients, a lovely little schnauzer called Hugo, showed me the other day that there is now a low fat primula cheese. I didn't realize that, because a primula cheese is, in every dog trainer's toolkit. But I've always been like, oh, I just can't use it. It's too high fat. But now there's a light blue one and it's low fat. So there are options out there, but it's not a huge issue if you have to just use your dog's normal wet food. So please don't feel like it isn't going to work in terms of like a training plan for them. It still can. But if you can find something that meets their allergy requirements or their dietary requirements, if it's a fat percentage that is different, then that variety is sometimes worth keeping for doing the training. Because I do use just normal wet, it's like white fish and potato or something I use for Rico and Maisie. But that's where then when we're doing these training sessions with the Firework sounds, I can then use the Fish for Dogs mousse because it is low enough fat for them. So it's a little bit different. Yes, it's still fish. To me, it still stinks. But for them, it's different. It's a different texture. I actually think it's easier for them to get off the liquid kind of pate style food that I have to like mush into it. So if you can find something, Kirsty, then do, but it's still worth doing because you're still pairing the sound with something that the dog enjoys. So just because it's not, the equivalent of the dog having a McDonald's isn't the end of the world.
Definitely. And the other thing, I don't know if this works for Kirsty, if your dog can tolerate any of the pates, and you've got different proteins for the pates as well, but if you grate the pate, then rather than mash it in, it's sort of looser. And then I would suggest using it on something like this, which is the buddy, or on the play date mat. And then it sort of drops into the holes, and that makes, grating it. So it's also grated veggies and things like that. I don't know. Do your guys have vegetables and fruit? And
I mean, you can get away with giving Maisie a carrot, but Rico's no interest in a vegetable. He's that dog who will, like, if you gave him like one pea amongst all of his food, he'll find it and spit it on the floor.
Oh, right. Okay.
So there's another, your friend follower, Faye, has just popped in there that he did enjoy.
Good. Yeah, and Faye's also said about the sprinkles. So again, you could do the sprinkles, but Kirsty, another thing as well is I know you've said you use wet food, but I don't know if there's any kibble that you use, but you can always crush the kibble up because it's a different experience. So just put it in a pestle and mortar, put it in a blender, put it in, your NutriBullet or whatever, and just change the consistency of it. And you'd be surprised. They're like, oh, this is interesting. This is something different. So it doesn't need to be all of these fancy products to go on the top.
Yeah, look, this is exactly what we're talking about. The dog hates peanut butter. Yeah, loads of them do. I'm seeing this more and more and more. It is fascinating for me how much of them, like, people are not enjoying it. And I know that little Stan is just now, and I can just imagine him with like peanut butter stuck in his lovely beard. Actually, I think he would have looked quite funny, Dave.
That's Stan or Dave with the peanut butter in it.
Stan.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So in terms of the actual training then, so you can use these as a distraction technique. So like I said, if you're watching this on the replay and you're, stuck, the fireworks are happening quickly, you don't have time to go through the training, then by all means use them as a distraction thing, because anything to take your dog's mind off it and to calm them back down again and to stop them just sitting in that moment, worrying and getting themselves more and more worked up about it is great. Okay. When it comes to the actual training, and what I'm going to share is a link for where you can find like a full set of the training. So I mentioned at the very beginning that the behaviorists who originally did this, vet behaviorists, are Bowen and Heath. Okay. And years ago, when I first heard of this technique called Sounds Scary, you used to have to like buy the resources. But very kindly, the fabulous charity Dogs Trust a few years ago kind of took all of these resources, came to some agreement with the team who are amazing, who's come up with this, and made it available in the public domain so that more dogs could benefit from this. So the link is there, and I'll make sure I put it in the comments and everything afterwards as well. But if you go on the Dogs Trust website, then you can find the full PDF, so a step-by-step guide on how to go through sounds therapy for dogs. So the process is called Sounds Scary, and there's different stages to it. And really, in an ideal world, if we had plenty of weeks on the run up to when we're next going to have fireworks, You would start with this with just trying to get your dogs to have kind of a neutral response. So we wouldn't even be using enrichment items in the first stage. We would be playing the sounds so quietly that your dogs acknowledge them. So you see like their ears prick up, but they don't start to show any signs of distress. Okay. So they don't stop what they're doing. They don't freeze. Their tail doesn't tuck under. Their ears aren't back. They're not showing the whites of their eyes. They're not panicking, but you've seen that they've acknowledged it. So you would do that and you would just leave it playing, and you would do that over the course of several weeks to the point that you could gradually turn the sound up and have it on really loud, and the dogs are able to kind of like it's just background noise.
But Rachel, a lot of would you reward and acknowledge them for that calmness during those early stages? Not with a mat, but with some other
so in this really, so the different kind of processes, really, like that one is just about us getting the dogs to desensitize to it. So it's a very passive process, and it's the stage that, to be quite honest, most people miss out because they just don't have the time. The majority of us will move straight on to the counter conditioning side, which is where we pair it with something lovely. And that's where what we're trying to do is we're trying to have the sound of the firework, whatever scary sound it is. And the tracks are all on that link that's showing across on the banner at the minute. They're on SoundCloud. You can access them for free. But please, when you do them, there's a reason I'm not demoing this live, because you might be watching this on your phone, you might be watching this on your laptop, your tablet, whatever it is, but you've probably got the sound up, I hope, so that you can hear myself and Mrs. P talking. And if I was to then demonstrate this by playing the sounds, it might play the sounds too loud for some of the individual dogs who are watching this. So that's why it's not a group approach, and I'm not just like playing firework noises as we go through the evening, because you need to start with this really, really quiet. And that's why personally I like using, I daren't say her name because she'll start talking, but one of those speaker things in the house with a name, girl's name begin with A. Those kind of speakers are wonderful because you can start with them really low. You can really easily control the sound. Or on your laptop, like if you go in that bottom right-hand corner where the speaker is, you can see the level, and it's like normally a number like 0 to 100, isn't it? So we want it really, really low when we start doing the training. What you don't want to do is like forget and have it on like volume 70 because you've been doing Zoom meetings for work all day. You press play on the SoundCloud track and then there's a boom and we scare your dogs from the get-go. That is absolutely not how the process works. So please do take the time to read the PDF and go through it in detail, okay? I know it sounds like boring, but it's your homework for everyone who's watching. You know, actually do follow it step by step, because you don't want to sensitize your dogs and make them more afraid of the sounds. What we're trying to do is really gradually introduce them to it, which is why you're starting now, okay? You're not starting in October, you're starting now. So you start with it really, really low, and you're gradually going to turn it up. Now, when we get onto the counter conditioning point of it, what we're trying to do is we're trying to pair that sound with something lovely. And that's where those enrichment items are perfect, because we need something that takes the dog a little bit of time so that that track can play. So it's not that we want it to take so long because the dog physically can't access the treats and they're getting frustrated. That's why licky mats are so good for this, because it's easy access, but it does take a bit of time. Particularly, you know, I've seen like the doggy aid or the like puppy milk, like they're just licking away for quite a period of time. And that sound is just going on and on and on. And that's what we need. Otherwise, your training session is going to be really, really short. But when we're doing counter conditioning, the key thing with it is that the sound of the fireworks predicts that the nice thing is coming. And what a lot of people do is they've got their laptop set up and ready. They go into the kitchen, they're stuffing a Kong with their lovely no fuss fill, or making their licky mat and whatever else. And the dog gets what, you know, the technical terms are overshadowing and blocking, but I call it cheese blindness. So they're just like food. And then when you go to press play on the sound, they don't even acknowledge the fireworks. And that's a really important step. So like have your laptop set up, get onto SoundCloud, get the track ready, have your sound down low, pause the track, then go off into the kitchen, prepare your licky mat or whatever enrichment item you're going to use. And then when you go back into the room where you're going to be doing the training, just sit for a bit. Like make a cup of tea, turn the telly on, get to the point where your dog is not paying attention to the licky mat or the Kong or whatever it is, and then press play on the track, because you need them to acknowledge the sound before you prepare and give them that item. Because what we want is the sound equals good thing, not just good thing, and then when they finished eating, be like, whoa, what is that noise? What is that noise? That's
Yeah.
not the process at all. It has to be that the sound predicts the good thing coming. And you
Yeah.
want to watch your dogs when you're doing it. I like to keep a notebook. I've got like a Maisie notebook, and it's got her weight in there because she's been losing weight. It's got like her medicine. I know what tablets she gets and when and all of this. And in there, I have the volume that we're up to in this training, because this is going to take place over several sessions. This isn't a you do it for 10 minutes at the end of this Facebook Live and you're done. This is something you're going to, try and factor into your day. So maybe, Kirsty mentioned using her normal food. Fine. Then we do this every mealtime every day. Then you're actually going to be making progress, because it's just become part of your daily.
It's like that habit stacking, isn't it? It's how
it is, and that human behavior change is just as hard.
Yeah.
It really is. So, if you can find a way of tying this into something you do on a daily basis, you're going to stick to the training. It's going to be more successful. But really do make sure that you have the sound down low. And it is much better to go slow and steady. Take your time, work up, turn the sound up gradually. It's not a race. Okay. If you're not going to get to the stage where you have fully got through a counter conditioning plan and you can play the fireworks sound and it goes boom and your dog's there wiggling away like, I love this noise because it means I'm going to get all this good stuff. If you've not got there by the time of this year's fireworks, don't panic. But if you're really worried that it's going to impact your dog, have a chat to your vet. Okay. Because if you need to, get that support in place for them for this year and then work on it again for next year. Okay. But really do recommend heading over to the Dogs Trust website. Okay. Find the PDF. The track links are all there and work through it gradually. Okay. Because it's such an important piece of training, and we can do it with everything. It doesn't have to just be fireworks sounds. As I mentioned at the beginning, you can do this with other things. And I have a lady at the minute who is preparing her dog for the arrival of a human baby. So they are doing crying baby noises. And I have to say, I'm glad I'm not listening to that track. It's not the one for me. But the process is exactly the same. So if anybody's watching this, if there's other sounds your dogs are scared of, vacuums, HDVs, whatever, you can do the same process.
We had the recycling. I'm not saying it was when they were tipping the bottles from our house in, but it was that noise. And Harvey wasn't that happy with. So when the dustman's going to come, or we knew. So again, I think it's where that prep is key. And you probably saw me slotting them in. That's why when I'm doing my prep,
so organized.
I know, but we have them to go sort of in the fridge, because there's no point when, as you say, if you're aware that something's about to happen, you want to actually have, you want to be prepped and ready. You don't want to be there sort of filling toys and doing things like that. So it's
and it is a lot. Like, I appreciate, the vast majority of training that we do with our pet dogs, particularly if it's, people who are watching this, you've got a young puppy, for example, it's quite easy, isn't it? Like, you just get a handful of their kibble or some treats and it's like hold it near their nose and lift it up. But here I'm asking you to have like a notepad to write things down. I'm asking you to have a PDF booklet that you've read everything from. I'm asking you to find the SoundCloud link, have your licky mat ready. It's a lot. So like, get your ducks in a row, have everything set up. It doesn't matter if the licky mat's been on the side, your computer's been set up, and you're like double checking for like 10, 15 minutes. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. Because actually it's better that the dog has had time to kind of go like, oh, I'm not getting the licky mat right now, before you press that sound. So if it takes you a bit of time before you get into the swing of what you should be doing, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. By all means, get in touch, because if I can help people, I will. But if you do need more help, then it is, I strongly recommend finding a behaviorist to work alongside you if you find this difficult. Hopefully, if you're watching and you've got a young dog or a puppy, this will be quite straightforward for you. It will be a case of kind of just getting your dogs used to this. Because actually, this is something we didn't really touch on, but a problem I see with kind of young dogs, really adolescent dogs, is depending on where in the year they're born, they might not experience fireworks during that sensitive period. So kind of like 8 to 12 weeks, they don't experience that sound then, because maybe there weren't any in May when they were in that right age bracket. And then they're potentially in their like second fear stage, which is a normal part of adolescent development at the time that fireworks hit. So they're even more scared because they're in this like second fear stage. Things are worrying me anyway. And now, boom, there's flashing lights, these sounds, and everything's just too much for them. So if you've got a young dog, then hopefully this is a case of like just a good game of fun for them. They've not had a bad experience. Nothing awful's happened. And you're able to just introduce this gradually, slowly catch a monkey in a way that's going to get your puppy to think, oh, firework noises are nice. I like these.
I like this. Yeah, no, exactly. And, you know, in the same way that you've reached out and said anyone can reach out to you if they need help, if anyone has any questions on different ideas for what to put on lick mats or different toys. And so I know often different dog shaped faces work better with different styles of toys. So I'm always happy to sort of share my advice and my experience of what people with that breed have bought and find successful. But also I know when you're buying things online, sometimes you want to have a little bit more of an in-depth sort of video and see how it works. So happy to create those for people. And as I say, licky mats make a fantastic range. You know, have you seen the new UFO, Rachel?
I have. I think I saw it when I was at Edition Dog Live, and I came over to see you.
Yeah, with the sticky backs on. So, you know, if you have a dog that's not comfortable sort of sitting down, or for you know, for physical reasons, you may have a dog that sort of prefers to be stood up. These can be stuck on a fridge. So, you know, it's as I say, it's finding what works for your dog and what they enjoy and what feels rewarding. So, yeah.
Do you know what? I was just thinking of the dogs that I were contacted with last year. It was multiple who were in the ensuite bathroom. That would work ideal. Stick it to the tiles. Stick it to the tiles. Yeah. If that's their place that they've chosen to go to, then that one is going to work really well.
Perfect.
So we've had a couple of comments while we've been chatting. If anybody else has got any questions, and we are live across a couple of different things, but they are all coming up. So whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Twitter, I can see all of your comments. So do pop them in. I'm sharing them across the bottom of the screen as we go through. We'll probably, I mean, I have nothing better to do because I don't really want to watch the football match that's on downstairs. So, you know, I'm quite happy to stay around and chat if anyone has got any questions. So let's go through a couple of these. So just a comment here from Mel saying, I love the notebook idea to track the volume that you're up to. It is so worth doing, because sometimes as well, if there's multiple people in the house, or, you know, one of you works nights, one of you works days, it might be different people doing the training. So if you just said, like, I know Rico's training went really well today, that's open to interpretation. Whereas if in the notebook it says, like, we got to volume 52 this morning, then when you do come back and you do another session, don't go in at volume 52. Start lower again, gradually move your way up and see if you can get a little bit higher the next time, and gradually go up and up and up. But I like records for everything. And if any of my clients are watching who are working with me through like a separation related behavior plan, they know I even like an Excel document when I'm working through training, because I like a graph. Nothing makes you feel prouder than when you see, like, my dog started on like 0, but now they're on volume 78. If I draw that as a big, lovely line, motivates me, it motivates my clients. I like it anyway.
Brilliant. What have we got here? We've got.
I was going to bring this one up for you. I don't know if you can see this one. There you go.
Yes.
What's a good toy for a 20-week-old golden retriever?
Ooh. Well, first of all, I think, what are you planning to pop in it, Dawn? That's always a good place to start, if it's sort of wet food or whether you want to use part of their daily allowance in the toy. I have to say, I don't think you can beat sort of like the Kong toys. You've got things like the Westpaw Topple. I think is a really, really great toy. There are 2 Topple sizes. They're actually bringing out an even larger one. Did you know there's going to be a really big one? But you've got the large Topple and the small Topple. So you can start off with the small Topple now and get puppy used to that. And they've got a little hole in the front. I don't know if I've got one in from the warehouse that I can show you, but they're certainly on the website. So you've got a small one that would work now for the puppy, and then you can get a larger one, and the 2 will connect. So I really like them because you can actually create a sort of a wobble toy so that kibble will fall out, or it can be separated. You can have wet food in it, dry food. So so the Topple's a really great one, I think.
And then she's fed kibble but used pate in little bits as treats.
Yeah, perfect. And to be honest, what you can do is, if you were here from the start, you would have seen that you can grate pate. And if you grate the pate and mix that in with some kibble, that makes it sort of, it sticks a little bit more. But I think the most important thing with any enrichment is it shouldn't be frustrating. You've got to build the value in that toy to start with. So at 20 weeks, you really just want them to see that, oh, this is something that's fun. And certainly if you're pairing it, as Rachel said, with this scary noise, you don't want them to have to work at something, and because it just completely detracts. So just make it really easy so that it wobbles, it falls over. So without a doubt, I would say something like the topple.
That, I think, was the one that I got. So Dawn's a client that I know quite well, and if you have a look, Dawn, there's a one where I said, like, what does everyone want when they've been to the beach and you want fish and chips? I made Rico and Maisie a fish and chip filled one with their like fish food and then like a dried piece of fish skin and some biscuits and stuff. And it is the longest that it has ever taken Maisie to eat her dinner. It was over 45 minutes. She absolutely loved it. And the other day I gave her one when I was in here doing a Zoom call, and I came upstairs and it was in the bedroom. She carried it upstairs. It's nearly as big as here. I don't know how she got it upstairs.
The other thing as well, Dawn, is they're great toys. And this one, this isn't one. This is in the same range, but this is a Quizzle. But this is my dog Harvey's actual Quizzle, and he's had this for 2 years, and they stay looking great. And West Paws, they are a more expensive toy. You do get your discount if you use Nose to Trail. But they have a guarantee. So if they get nibbled or anything happens, I have never had one back. So yeah, they're a great toy. So that's what I would recommend. So,
all right, let's have a look at this one. So Daisy has put in, any tips for a situation outside of your control where if they happen to be out having a toilet break and the firework goes off and they're beyond their threshold, what to do to calm them down? Do you know what? This is one of those really awful things that does happen. And I think the first thing that I would say is, please do not get any dog parent guilt about this, because things will happen for anybody that are outside of your control. And we beat ourselves up and we think, like, why didn't I just wait? Or why didn't I take them out earlier? And that doesn't help you, and it doesn't help the dog. Okay. So if that kind of thing happens, please don't feel too bad about it. You're quite right. The best thing to do is to look at what can we do to calm the dog back down again. And actually, enrichment items are really good for this, because one of the reasons I use them so much with clients that I'm working with is about the fact that we need to decompress our dogs. So when dogs are exposed to a stressful event, their blood cortisol level, that stress hormone, is rising. So if you've gone out and something awful's happened, you're going to have a spike in that cortisol. We're going to be stressed. So what we need to do is to try and bring that down, because what could happen if fireworks have gone off is that actually then there's more. And so then that level rises and rises and rises, and then the dog is really, really struggling. So do look at giving them things that encourage them to sniff. So snuffle mats, for example, or any of these toys that encourage them to sniff things out are great, because when they sniff, their heart rate decreases, their blood pressure levels drop, and it gives them a big hit of dopamine, which is a calming chemical. So even if that is just like a really easy thing for them, like getting some smelly cheese or hot dog sausage and throwing it around the room gently, like nice and easy for them to just kind of run a couple of steps, sniff, get it. Just little bits of sniffy games are great. If you know they've got things that they naturally do when they're stressed, like my girl, she chews. Maisie loves to chew. She'll put something right in the back of her teeth and she'll give it a right go. That's how she relieves her stress. Give them those options, whether it's a carrot, whether it's a yak milk chew, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Just give them those options to de-stress. But do keep in mind that those stress hormones, they can be elevated for days afterwards. Okay. So what I wouldn't then do is be like going out to like a doggy coffee shop, or, putting them in potentially another highly stressful situation the next day, or even a couple of days later, because it can take 3 days for that level to drop back down again. So, yes, in the moment, anything you can do to calm them down, try and show them that you're quite calm and relaxed and everything's okay. And then just keep in mind that it might have a knock-on effect for the next couple of days as well. I don't know, Tracy, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, that's something, I mean, just my experience, obviously, for anyone coming in, I'm not a behaviouralist. I'm just a dog mum.
Just a dog mum.
For us, we've learned so much along the way. And I think with, for us, if we have, even on a walk, people come back and I say, we'll do a de-stress after a walk. People often associate stress, and I think you'll correct me if I'm wrong on this, but people associate stress with with bad things, but sometimes it just can be the world. It can just be an exciting
particularly with
walk
our young
and
dogs. And the
having a
world is
great day.
overwhelming. Yeah,
It
yeah,
can be
absolutely.
really positive. So we will often, you know, come back from a walk and do something just like a scatter around or have a lick mat. So so yes, so we've got here best lick mat for an easily bored 7-month-old Boston. So have tried banana and some pate. So I think the first thing would be to say is, you know, don't mash it in. I'm not saying that you have, but it, you know, if it's mashed in, banana's quite tricky to get out. It gets in all the little holes. And I think again, I would probably, my choice of lick mat is I'd probably go for something with a larger square like that. So you're getting more out on a lick, I think, basically, rather than mashing it into something like the Soother one that I showed you before, or something like that they might have to work slightly harder on. And if this 7-month-old Boston, it doesn't necessarily have to be the flat lick mats. You can do something like this. So what you could do is maybe put something in the bottom. And if you're looking at low fat treats, it's probably worth having a look. And I know I sent you some of this for Rico, didn't I, to try, which is the mousse, the cod one, which is low fat. Is look for some low fat options. This might be one of them. Again, you can always make things weaker. You can add some water to it, so you can make it go further. So you're reducing the overall amount of fat they're having, but maybe spread some around the inside, but then put some loose treats in there so that, I don't know if it's, it's a little girl. So when she starts, the initial is like, oh, there's stuff in there, but that nose gets working, thinks, oh, but there's something else as well. So it's pique that interest. And as I said, you know, it's have a play with these toys. And it might be that she prefers having it upside down and just something spread over the top. But I mean, they really are. Let's have a look. What else have we got that could work? I mean, something like the plates.
Oh, I
like
love
this.
those ones. Yeah. I use those most of the time for my meals now. They're just so pretty as well.
Yeah, they are very pretty. But again, what I would be doing on that is I'd put something in there that was a little bit more challenging. I mean, I say challenging, but not frustrating. So a little bit more challenging to get out, but interspersed with other things that are easily accessible. So you pique that interest.
I do that with mine, actually. I put like the wet food in one and then biscuits, wet food biscuits, make like a little pattern. I say a little pattern. Mine are so ugly compared to the people who do like licky mat art that I see on social media. And I'm like, there's a reason I was told not to do art at GCSE. I can't even like make my dog's dinner.
I did a Father Christmas, a snowman on a log, and the log was decidedly dodgy looking. And I don't think, and I think that's one thing. And I think it's worth saying that, as we've said it, your dog doesn't really care what it looks like. It's
and also remember, vision is not their primary sense. It's smell.
Exactly.
Just on the low fat treats, before I bring up another question for you, Tracy, I have a blog on low fat treats because of the fact my boy has pancreatitis. So if you go onto my website, I'll put the link across at the end as well. But I've got a whole blog on low fat treat options. You're welcome to have a nosy at, because I use things like the 0% fat Greek yogurt, there's the extra low fat Philadelphia, which quite often I mix with the doggy milk cartons to make it a bit thinner. So there's all sorts of options.
Yeah, and
so
as I said,
for you,
we use the yogurt a lot. We use the yogurt a lot and mix something in with the yogurt just to flavour it slightly. Or you could even crush some of their kibble and make a dust and put it in with the yogurt. So it's just
there we go. Look at this. This is a little dog that I know as well. He will be having softened kibble. So which licky mat would be the best to use that with?
for the greedy brown clown.
He is so cute. Yeah. Very, very cute.
I would say something like this, just because it's going to be easier for you to get it on there, and certainly easier for them to get off. If you have if he's greedy, do they like to chew? Let's have a look. 11 months old. Yeah, I have to say, all the licky mats are great.
There's a harder bottom one, isn't there?
Sorry?
Is there a harder bottom one for chewers?
Yeah, I do like these. Now, they shouldn't be chewing their lick mat, but
in the name,
you're going to be supervising them. But I have to say, I do like these. I do like these ones. And I think just from a longevity perspective, you can put this in the dishwasher as well. And all of the configurations come in the tough version as well. So, yeah. And of course, you get it's a dog bandana. It's not for humans, but I decided.
Do you know what though? That's ideal, because actually I've had a lot of dogs coming on my pet trail sessions recently, and they need like a uniform. Because like rather than buying a second harness, a way of telling them that they're working, they wear a bandana. So there you go. Look, if anybody is coming trailing, you can use that.
There you go.
All right, there's a couple more. I'm conscious. Are you all right for time? Are you happy for us to keep going?
I'm fine. Yeah, I'm good.
Well, I'm not keeping you from the Liverpool game. So there was a message here saying, how can you calm your dogs down if they've heard noise and they refuse food treats? So this is a really common thing. And sometimes I try to remind people, like, this is a normal thing to happen if you are scared. So when we're scared, quite a lot of people have heard of like the fight or flight mechanism that kicks in for dogs and for humans, for any of us. And if you were like in the corner shop, you were buying, I know, your newspaper and some probably bars of chocolate in my case. If someone came in with a gun and held the shop up, you're not just going to carry on eating the bars of chocolate. Everything goes into that kind of panic station to go, doesn't it? You're not thinking about eating. Everything is diverted elsewhere. So give them a little bit of time. It is quite common. What quite often you'll see is that there's a moment where they have either a bit of a shake off, or they do like a stress relieving like body language sign. For some dogs, it's like a little sneeze. Some dogs is that shake off, that displacement behavior. And then they're able to eat after that. They just need that time to process. But if you've got to the point with any of the dogs who are watching this, if you're finding that there are sounds that can get to the point where they can't eat, then that's when I would be having that chat with the vet and seeing if there's anything else underlying going on. Because to give you an example, so like a dog who has any kind of like joint or pain issues, I know I'm showing you a Cuddly Toys bottom, but there's a reason for it. So if the dog is like, there's a loud bang and the dog is scared by it, any dog kind of makes us flinch, doesn't it? We kind of go, oh, what was that? So in that kind of situation, our muscles have tensed, our joints have moved a little bit. So if a dog has, and it might be an undiagnosed health issue, okay? It might be something like arthritis, elbow dysplasia, hip dysplasia, any of those things. Then what can happen is then that causes pain. And again, we know if you're in a great deal of pain, you probably don't want to eat. So I think if you are finding that noises can be so loud and scary for your dogs that they can't eat, then I would strongly recommend a full health check and visit the vet. Please don't panic, Faye. I don't want you to be thinking that there's definitely something wrong with your dog. I'm not saying that at all. Do see if they have, like just that little bit of time and then they calm down and they're able to eat again. But if you are worried and there are certain sounds that are bothering them, then please do pop and have a chat to your vet or drop me a message afterwards and we can talk through it a bit more as well. All right, some more questions. I love lick mats and have lots of them. What other enrichment toys do you suggest for a bit of interest? Normally raw fed, but as a treat for fireworks training, I use wet food.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I suddenly remembered I had some of the topples in. So I thought that's why I jumped up to get them. So Kirsty and for the lady before who was asking about the topples. So Kirsty, I love these for raw. It's just got an interesting, this is the topple, this is a large, you've got the little sort of fingers or sort of filaments inside that you can stuff the raw down inside. They're easy to clean if your dog hasn't cleaned it out completely. And you've got a little hole in the back for tongue access if you decide to join the two topples together. So this is the one that we're talking. So this is great. If you can use your wet food in these as well. I showed you the quizzle. The quizzle's a good one. And this works well with raw food. I use the no fuss fill to get the raw food in. I'll be honest, it's a difficult one to get food in unless you use this, which is one of the reasons why I designed it. But it's quite satisfying. So you can just push your raw food, it goes all the way through. So that's quite good. So particularly if you've got a dog that likes to chew. So your Labradors, and I've spotted somebody else, I think Dawn was saying you've got a chewer as well. Yeah, so this is quite nice because this is really robust. It can take a bit of chewing. And the beauty of this is when you chew, it squeezes and a little bit more of the food comes out. But yeah, so Harvey will get all of his raw out of that and out of here. So yeah, but again, if you want to drop me a message either on Instagram or I can follow up afterwards on here, I can create some little videos for you of some other other toys, and you can tell me what they've already got. So
I'll show that again so people can see where they can find you elsewhere as well.
Oh, Kirsty said she's a Staffy crossbow citroen would be great. I really would say this. It's a really great toy, and if you've only just joined us, this is actually Harvey's that he's had for his 2 today. Actually,
It's his
we should be out
birthday.
celebrating, should we? Really, it's 2 today.
Oh, I didn't realise we should have had a little celebration for him.
Yeah, so he's running around in the garden with Mr. P with his light cap on. Well, that's Mr. P, not Harvey. Yeah, so. Yeah, I mean, and this still looks like a brand new toy. So no, they're really great ones. Also, the Staffy crossbreed, I'm trying to think what it's called. The Tux is really good as well because it works well with their shape of face. So, but I don't have one in here. So
I don't think we've got any more comments at the minute. So I don't know if should we just recap kind of where people can find bits and pieces in case they've joined us late.
Yeah.
And then if there's any last questions, we'll cover those before we finish for the evening.
Yeah.
So for anybody who's looking for bits and pieces, I will update the blog. So I started a blog the other day so that people had the link to join us this evening. I will hopefully be able to put this whole video into there, but I'll also put some more tips on the actual training processes themselves. So desensitizing your dog and using the counter conditioning training. But the main place that you need to be looking for if you want the kind of booklets and the soundtracks is go to the Dog's Trust website. Okay. And if you do find it helpful, then do, drop them a little donation and say thank you because they're doing wonderful work for dogs all across the country. If you want your enrichment items, and you can recap the offers because I'm going to make a mess of it, but you head over to Tracy's website. So it's nofussphil.com. And what are the offers we've got again?
So the offers are, if you use the code nose to trail, you get 10% off everything. And tonight, and we'll run it for a few days after. I think we'll run it for a week after we said. I'll also say with any 2 lick mat toys, so it's either the bowls or the mats, with any 2, you will get, while stocks last, and I've got a few, you will get a licky mat bandana for your dog. If you have any other 2 enrichment toys, I'll pop in one of the Fish for Dogs mousse for you, and you just have to, if you pop nose to trail in, I'll know, and you'll get this automatically. And if you want to be super prepped and have 2 lick mats and have them ready, and you can store up to 4 in here in your ready rack. So if you want a ready rack and 2 licky mat products, you get the bandana and the Fish for Dogs mousse. But I'll pop up in my stories that offer. And when I see the orders come through, I'll make sure everybody gets their goodies.
Fabulous. So just to recap, this isn't a substitute for kind of specific advice for individual dogs. Okay, so if your dog has an established sound, fear, or phobia, please do seek the help of an appropriate professional. And the best places for you to find those are, you want a clinical animal behaviorist. And because the term behaviorist is not a protected title, okay, please don't just stick it into Safari or Google. Okay, go on the APBC, the Association of Pet Behavior Counselors website, or the ABTC, the Animal Behavior Training Council website, so you can make sure that the person you find is appropriately trained. Okay, they're going to work alongside your vet to help your dog in a safe, ethical, modern way. All right, I will just double check if we've got any comments. I don't think there's any others in there. So unless you have any last bits of enrichment wisdom you want to share with us, I'll leave it there for this evening, if that's okay.
I think we've talked all things licking out. I didn't get to wear my t-shirt. If anyone joins, maybe, what do you think? Yeah, maybe next time.
Honestly, I would be wearing mine with pride if I had one.
Brilliant. I think on that note, we might go.
Thank you so much to everyone who's joined us. You know where we are if you need anything. I've just popped up the website for No Fuss Phil just on the bottom there. But it is, if you're one of my clients, it'll be in your discount pack that comes when you first sign up as well.
Very posh.
Any questions, just get in touch, everyone. But good luck with it and get preparing your dogs. And if you start the process, do some little videos, tag us in some little pictures. It would be lovely to see how they're all getting on their training journeys to hopefully have a happier fireworks season this year.
Perfect.
Take care, everyone. Thanks very much. Bye.